Good morning, everybody. You tuned in to Cragcore. Thank you for being here with me today. Today is it's the 3rd. It's Thursday, the 3rd of August. Already we're getting into it. So today we're going to be talking about accountability. And to start off with, I just thought I'd say that I've noticed an awful lot these days. A lot more psychopathic behaviour. I'm going to have to just say it as it is. The way I see it is psychopathic behaviour. People that are acting in a way that just goes to show that they have psychopathic tendencies. Allow me to elaborate on that. If any of you out there drive, for instance, have you noticed that there are more people taking heavier risks, not only with their lives, but with other people's lives too? Because I certainly have. Like, have you noticed that, say for instance, if you pull out of a junction, perhaps, there's plenty of time, you're not being a dickhead, and just squeezing out, you're actually pulling out in good time at a good rate of speed, not causing anybody to change direction or alter their speed. That's technically the criteria for being able to perform a manoeuvre on the road. You can perform that manoeuvre should you not be causing anybody else to change direction or speed. Technically, that's the perfect opportunity. So let's just say that is the case. I've noticed that people will intentionally, and I know this isn't a normal, this isn't it's certainly not normal. I've noticed that this certainly isn't a new thing. I know that this has been going on for years. There have just been people like this all the time, everywhere. But there's been more of it just recently. I've noticed that people have become more and more angry. So people will speed up intentionally. You can see it happen. And when you're out on the road, they will get as close as they possibly can before they pull their brakes. Now, to me, that's a fucking psychopath, because what they're doing is they're all but running you off the fucking road simply because you pulled out into the road in front of them, and they're stopping at the last minute. If there was no rule of law, these people would most likely run you off the road. Tell me I'm wrong. Because otherwise, why on earth would you act like that? Why would you go so fast so as to look as though you're going to smash into someone and then stop at the last minute? Well, the only thing that's stopping you at the last minute is, the punishment for what would have been should you have continued. Now, that's just one instance. I don't want to go through lots and lots of different examples here because it's pointless. There is so much nowadays, so much of that stuff happening nowadays, where people are just acting aggressively towards one another in a way that doesn't really allow for repercussion. Because for instance, let's use the car analogy. These people aren't going to get out of the car and have an argument with you, because what argument is there to be had? They're actually the ones at fault here. You haven't done anything wrong at that point. They're actually the ones at fault. So there is no argument. What they're going to say, don't pull out in front of me. Well, you've got to pull out in front of somebody, and if there's enough room, then you've got the right to. And also, people also have a go at those folks that have, say for instance, pulled out in front of them when they do it every single day. Everybody on the road has to be courteous. And I believe that the road is where people's character will come out a lot of the time, because you're inside a little fucking box, and a lot of people get a false sense of security of that little box, and they do their little judgment over other vehicles on the road, so on and so forth. They act accordingly based on their own judgmental perspective. So, that being said, just as a little sidestep here, I was speaking to somebody who I consider to be very intelligent, and they said to me recently that they believe that there ought to be a a psychological evaluation for folks when they're doing their driver's test. And I tell you what, I'd have to agree. I'd have to strongly agree, because on the road you've got a killing machine at your fingertips. You make the wrong decision out on the road, man, and you've killed somebody. You've killed yourself. You've killed somebody. Probably bringing other people into the mix as well. Now, if there was a psych evaluation, there would quite possibly be less psychopaths on the road, that's for sure. And it would wheedle out some of the murderers, the potential fucking murderers out there. Because let's face it, if you're all but running somebody off the road, then you've kind of got the tendencies to be a murderer, a psychopath. For what purpose, though? This is the thing. For what purpose? And I am making a point here. But for what purpose? There is none. It's just this egotistical drive that no one else is allowed to be in front of you on the road. And that's just fucking weird. It's like people have got an inability to accept that they're part of something greater, like they're part of a world team. Because it doesn't matter how fast you drive, you will always end up behind somebody else. And we've all got to get somewhere. Now, I get it, there's lots of slow drivers, lots of people that make bad decisions on the road. I get it, man. I come across fucking 10 a day. But the thing is, we all make mistakes, man. And we've all done those things at least once. Like, who cares, man? You know, like, we can't allow the actions of others to affect us to the point where we're taking it out on other people that don't deserve it. Which is why I'm going to have to bring in accountability, because it's all about accountability. Now, when you're out there and you're driving along, and in fact, fuck it, it doesn't matter about driving along. Perhaps where this comes from, just on a whole, let's just forget the driving analogy for a moment, because it's just something that I've noticed, the driving thing, because I spend a lot of time on the road. It does affect other aspects of life too. You know, a complete lack of people being courteous to one another. And even it's gone the other way now, in every aspect of life. It's gone beyond just not being courteous. It's gone to like a malice aforethought these days. People just want to be horrible to each other on a massive scale. Now, this is the thing though, right? Maybe it's not that there are more people doing this. I mean, I do believe that there are more people these days acting badly. But maybe it's other folks that are able to just see it more. Because if you think about what happened, you know, I'm not even going to say the dates, you know, the years, but just remember that large event that happened that affected the whole world. It did serve as a magnifying glass, didn't it? And it allowed us to, I don't know, I think it changed the energy of the planet. I think it shifted the energy of the planet personally. Because things have been different since then. There's been people that have had their veil taken away. We can see them for who they are now. And we know who we are now individually too. There was a proverbial line drawn in the sand, and people fell on what side they fell on. That much I believe to be wholly true. So maybe it's just the fact that since a lot more of us are now moving in the opposite direction, we actually see this psychopathic behavior slightly more now, because before perhaps we were just blind to it. We were more in tune with it because, you know, we were all just living on the same kind of level, whereas because there's been a dividing force, we can now see that which is our polar opposite a little more clearer. You know, that's just one thought. But you see, accountability is that's where we find ourselves here, because ultimately accountability for our actions will stem the flow of psychopathic behaviors and this kind of stuff. It was probably fueled, this behavior was probably fueled by what happened, by the segregation. And again, that same person that was saying about the psych eval was saying that it's quite possible that the dread that people now feel upon their lives based on what it is they've had injected probably is causing some form of cognitive/social dissonance, because if you've administered something or had something administered and you find out later on down the line that perhaps maybe you shouldn't have and it's potentially life-threatening, people will act differently. They will do. They will act differently and quite possibly live in a perspective of fuck it, which will ultimately bring out, if you've got those psychopathic tendencies, it will bring them out in you, because now you think, well, what the fuck, I don't care, you know, I'm going to die anyway. That's what these people may be thinking. Not that's what they are, but that's potentially what they might be thinking. And I think that's a very interesting point, because if you take away somebody's hope, you take away somebody's life purpose or, you know, reason for living, even in a small capacity when it comes down to the way that they view themselves and their life, it will change the way that people act, I think, you know, trajectively, on a very, very big scale. You know, once the cracks start to show, you know, there'll be fissures soon to come, you know. So That being said, I think it's about time that we all start looking at this, because if we're not careful, the long-lasting effects of all of this psychologically could potentially be catastrophic. If you accept that everybody's connected to everybody else through a connective energy field, and through that connectivity we're all kind of collectively connected to the planet, because the planet has an electromagnetic field the same as we do, and we're all a part of it and within it, which means we affect it and it affects us. Now, I heard an interesting theory in a book that I'm listening to just lately by Dolores Cannon. Now, she was saying that on one of the readings that she did, one of these subconscious types that she connected with said that there's going to be like a catastrophic event where the planet will be destroyed by the energy of the people. Now, at first, you know, I kind of thought, well, how could that happen? But the more you think about it, the more you realise that if you look at the nature of existence, how it's all energy, and through that energy everything is connected. Just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not there. Well, as a matter of fact, there's more of what you can't see than what you actually can. Anybody looking at the very narrow band of the spectrum of light, that what it is that we're able to see, that's refracted and what have you, through our eyes and stuff, that will tell you that there's more that you can't see than what you can, which means there's more to reality going on around you than what there is actually that you can witness and take part in physically, because you're also in a physical state in your waking hours. Now, it makes me wonder if if we're not careful, that our collective energy, considering the fact that it's all connected with one another, which then is connected to the planet on a whole through its electromagnetic field, which is then connected to the solar system and all the other planets' electromagnetic fields, and therefore so on and so forth, because every time you go out it gets bigger and stronger, of course, because it's now all connected and magnified. It's a bit like a singular link in a chain is connected to all these other links, which therefore creates, one particular link may not be heavy on its own, but you connect it to all the other links and you've got a massive gross weight there. Now, if you kind of consider that, what we have here is a potential catastrophe, for want of a better analytical term. You've got a potential catastrophe here, because just like on that reading that Dolores Cannon did, a planet could quite literally be torn apart, because the electromagnetic frequency, let's just say that's gravity, let's just say that's holding things together, it must all be connected to all the other forces of nature, because all the other forces of nature are part of it. So if our personal electromagnetic fields get so distorted, and then collectively it starts to ripple out and distort other people's, well, then potentially this could have a buckling effect. And if you look at it that way, God knows what could happen. Maybe this planet and this reality is quite literally what we create, what we put out, we get. Maybe this planet is quite literally going to shit because we're going to shit. Maybe if we turn around our own personal energy, well, ultimately, collectively, we can then change the way that the planet then reacts to us. based on what it is we're putting out to it. And the physical world around us literally changes. I mean, I personally, based on that analogy, would have to accept that as being at least a probable truth. Based on the fucking science, man. You know? The science of fucking resonant fields and shit. You've got to look at it like that. And you see, this is why I personally believe as well that there's been a massive attack on the human psyche, man. I personally think the human psyche is the most important weapon of choice for these bastard oligarchs. These disgusting, dark, evil forces. They use your own perceptions and your own mental state against you, so that it's against everybody and everything. If these people can only exist in a dark world, if their own personal energy, it's a bit like a tuning fork. When put in line with other tuning forks that are out of tune, the strongest one will resonate through all the others. If their particular resonant energy field is more comfortable in a negative world, well, they need to, and let's just say that because it's more comfortable, they become more powerful in a negative world, because that's the energy frequency that it's now sat at. Well, they are the tuning fork that is now going to be comfortable within that field. They need to get all of the other tuning forks to change, so now they've got this collective power, and they can just direct it like a fucking photon beam. You know, like the planet destroying beam from the that big sphere thing in Star Wars. But so if that's the case, well then, what we need to do in order to defeat this group of people, and in order to, you know, get out of this trap, is to quite simply just take account for our actions and be positive, be happy, love one another. I think is the key. Be loving and caring. Raise your vibration, because only then, collectively, will we harmonize the planet to our frequency. And then these people can no longer exist. They will be made to feel so uncomfortable that they'll have to leave. They'll have to just leave us alone, because they won't have the power. They'll wither up, they'll shatter. Have you seen a water droplet experiment? At the right frequency, it creates a fucking macabre. But at the wrong frequency, it will blast apart. So, if we're all water, which we are, all we've got to do is start emitting the right frequency so that we can create a harmonic resonance of a positive nature and out-harmonize these fucking evil bastards, quite simply put. And then they will just shatter. They would have to, because they can't exist within that energy field. This is why, in my opinion, there is so much emphasis put on controlling the masses through emotion and thought. There's an attack, clearly, on positivity. And in every single thing that they do, you can see it. Look around, the music, the films. What is it you're attracted to? Most likely negativity, until you start seeing that and taking account, and you start raising your vibration, and then it no longer interests you. It's very strange how that happens. Well, at first it feels strange because you feel like a different person. Well, I used to be interested in this stuff, but actually when you look at it, it's not very strange at all. It's actually the natural course of things. So accountability for our own actions and our thoughts and what it is we put out is my personal belief, man, that will change the world around us. And if we can do that, well, then we can harmonize a positive, resonant field and quite literally shatter the dark, evil bastards out of existence. And on that note, guys, I'm going to wish love and peace to all things everywhere. This is Cragcore signing off. Thank you for being here today. Peace.